Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our latest Q&Agency event. My name is Joshua Handler. I'm the co-founder and lead programmer for the Q&Agency. It is my pleasure to welcome the editorial team behind JFK here tonight in honor of its 35th anniversary. We have Joe Hutshing, Pietro Scalia, and Hank Corwin. Joe, Pietro, and Hank, thank you for being here. It's a pleasure, Pietro and Hank, to see you both again. And Joe, it's a pleasure to have you here for the first time.
Thanks, Joshua.
Yeah, thank you.
A huge thank you to our premier partner, the American Cinema Editors. Thank you as always for your support and for all of your members that are joining us here this evening. So hello to all of you, and also to our year-round sponsor, the Baton Rouge Film Commission. It's always a pleasure to be working with you, and we're so happy to be working with you again for another year. Joe, you and I spoke the other day, and you had said something interesting to me, that this film came together rather quickly.
Extremely.
And that it was not a laborious not laborious, not a lengthy edit. Can you three take us into your workflow and how you were able to put this thing together so quickly, despite the fact that this is obviously a massive, ambitious piece of filmmaking?
Well, we did did we know we were coming out in at Christmas, first of all, or was that a shortened deadline?
No, I think Warner Brothers wanted to come at the end of the year. So
Yeah, so we started on April 15th, tax day, which would be 35 years tomorrow. And the first thing that happened was when we realized this was, I guess, a few days before we started getting footage. The three of us and our post-production supervisor, Bill Brown, sat around going, wait, we're going to get a lot of different formats of film. And so that was a huge deal to see how are we going to edit this on, I think we had chems, uh, and so we put our heads together and thought, well, we can't do it on Edit Droid because it's not ready. We can't, they won't pay for the Laserdisc, which it was Laserdisc based. So we thought we couldn't do it on 35 because there would be too many, there would be also be, didn't we had so many different footages from security cameras and straight eight, super eight. And
yeah,
so,
we had a lot of archival footage,
right.
and 35 different formats, CinemaScope, 185, black and white, color, all different formats. So the question was, how do we combine all these formats to be able to edit? And we came to the conclusion that we need to reduce everything to 3/4 inch tape because if you remember, Hank, Joe, we had to prepare these playbacks that were on TV, right? That was kind of like the time pressure that they had to shoot
All right.
the scene, and then we had to incorporate, Gary Oldman with the stock footage in order for them to play it back, on the TV set. And the time constraint of, building it, using the stock footage, the material, transferring it, getting it 3/4 inch tape, send the edit that Oliver would see, send it back to LA, get a 24 frame video playback, give it back to the production so that they play it on the TV set so you wouldn't end up with the bar. So that was a really stressful time to create that. So we said, that's the unifying thing. We could start working with that. And we devised sorry, Joe, just took over to describing the system. How do we, keep track of the 35 that was shot, on 3/4 inch tape. So with edge codes and, hole punching the frame, keeping track of the time code and all that, we figured out a system that we could always conform back to.
Pietro, there wasn't even time code. It was like a dress track.
Right. Yes. I mean, yeah, we had somehow there was a reference between the 35 edge code and our start, right? I know I don't remember how we did that, but that was hard.
Well,
to
we
put
thought
together.
we thought that it was smart to work in on 3/4, and honestly, that's where all the madness began. I think
Exactly.
it's unbeknownst to us that we were
Yeah.
in a trouble.
But just to put it in perspective, right? I mean, Joe, we also talked about this when you think about it. When you said we started April 15th and the movie was out
December 20th.
December 20th, right?
That's 8 months.
Yeah, 8 months shot. And this is a 4-hour film or longer, right? With
Yeah.
a lot of, we call them opticals, or so-called visual effects. But if you consider, we had, I don't know, Hank, do you remember how many blow-ups and things we did and repositioning? It was like, I think
Well,
close to 2,000 visual effects. Imagine doing that.
Well, everything that Bob shot in any other format other than 35 was blown up.
Yeah.
Anytime we had any video, any stock footage, we had to rephotograph that on the 35.
Right, and I remember that we had the Pacific Title and our technicians there, doing the frames, and marking the compositions of how we want to blow it up. And anyway, it was constant, changing and blowing up and repositioning, formats, step printing that we did. If you shot certain things in 6 or 8 frames.
Right.
Anyway.
You had to step print it so that it had that weird stuttering effect. So that, and that was all a decision. And many times we did it various ways and then chose our favorite. And
but like you said, the time constraint, it was really done in a short amount of time. I think all this amount of work that went into it.
Did you say, let me just clarify something that you just said. Did you say that the shoot began on April 15th?
It did.
Wow.
And we were we started in Dallas.
Yeah.
And so, and we were in Dallas for a month, as I recall. And then we were in New Orleans for what, 2 months?
I'm almost 3 months. I mean, 2.5 months. I remember we were still there in June. When John Williams came to visit us, and we were still editing.
Food was great.
Oh yeah. What's that?
The food was great.
Great food, in both cities, by the way.
Yeah.
But one thing that was interesting was that the footage that we got, all right, that was as much as the time constraint as we had, cut together very well. It didn't fight you. And also, I was thinking about other movies that I've worked on where you spend literally months working on a scene, maybe. We didn't have that. We a lot of those scenes we cut and then that was it. And there were certain ones, of course, we recut, but a lot of the scenes were early cuts. And went together very well,
It was a liberating way to work.
What's that, Hank?
It's a liberating way to work.
Yeah.
Hank, can you talk a little bit about that about how it was liberating for you? I know that Oliver has said in the past that he brought you onto this film because of your background in commercials, not in film up until this point, which I thought was so interesting and obviously worked out brilliantly for this film.
Yeah, no, I didn't know what to expect. And I was pleasantly, I had worked a lot in these multiple formats and in commercials, and I had done a bunch of music videos. And, we were just out of necessity in spots and in videos because they didn't have the budget. We were working in a much looser way at the time. And I'm just trying
I just remember you worked with Bob Richardson,
Yeah, no, I did. Bob brought me into this thing, into this lunacy. I showed him a spot that I had done for AT&T. It was with a motorcade. A Russian dignitary came to a small town in upstate New York, and they had a motorcade, and we step printed it. And so he shot it. The director shot it. He shot everything like at 4 frames, 6 frames a second. And then we step printed it. So it had that motion blur, which was beautiful.
Yeah.
Bob I provoked him.
Yeah.
He brought me in.
Yeah, I think that was part of the style, but the way Bob was also wanting to incorporate the different formats, and he also handed Super 8 cameras to the extras at Daily Plaza that we collected as well, just to have that kind of handheld feel. But it was fun to see if you would shoot something at 6 frames or 8 frames and how you would multiply those, like print each frame 4 times to get 24, but sometimes you print it even slower, right? And so you have more streaking. So imagine you have a moving camera with the frames, and so you have motion on top of motion, and it would create great effects. You never know what you get, and so that's why having the opticals, try different things was a great way to be creative with the images.
But like 35 years later, now we're having this conversation. The three of us, the four of us just talked. I don't see this film the way I did when we were first doing it. I mean, it really does feel like two very discrete films. You had the information dump, and then you had Cosner's story. And Cosner's story was shot more conventionally. It was really just that juxtaposition, moving these actors around, as opposed to the freedom that we had with all the stock footage and the other stuff. It really sort of opened up a new way of thinking of cinema, and being able to start integrating live action and that kind of stuff. It was this movie, it was groundbreaking, honestly.
Yeah, I would agree. I remember when you were cutting the scene, Hank, where he interviews Joe Pesci for the first time, and he's asking him about the duck
Goose
hunt.
hunting.
The what? The goose hunting. And you put in that shot of the storm at that, and we hadn't done anything like that before. It was just like I was such a shock to see that, and I thought it was so great. And then we started doing stuff like that a lot. But
No, you guys were really got it very quickly, and you were
yeah.
amazing.
So what happened was, Oliver brought in, he said, I'm going to have this guy, Hank Corwin, come on. He's a commercial editor. He hasn't done long form, but he's gonna work with these scenes. And I would like to say that Hank was every bit as much an editor on the movie as Pietro and I were. And so when he started cutting, I think I remember the first thing. Hank, did you cut the opening with Eisenhower talking while we were still? I don't think we'd had footage yet. I think
Yeah,
you were cutting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we've been getting the footage from UCLA, as I recall.
Well, oh, yeah. But you cut that before we were really. You cut that separately, and I was so inspired by that opening. It just knocked me out with the all the archival footage of Kennedy and his children and the Cubans and just the events of the day. And I was just and that really just I just thought, wow, we can do anything in this movie. And then and so that was quite inspirational to me.
Yeah,
So I thought we're going to have no problem here.
yeah. Watching the film last night, I was blown away at the work that you two did. Truly.
Well, the three of us. And there was Julie Monroe too,
Yeah.
who was also an editor. So uh, yeah, it was. But one thing I remember is the exhaustion we had from working because we had to work so fast. And I wondered, like, what if we'd had avids? We could have done it in 4 months. Just kidding.
No. It's
Hank,
all pre-digital. That's what you have to, all pre-digital,
We did. Well, we'd done the doors, Pietro. So
Yeah, I mean that was like
that was non-linear, but it was really fucked up. But it was
I know, but
non-linear.
it's like, yeah, Editroid was a dead-end evolution somewhere.
You cut that on Editroid? Were you working on Editroid?
Yeah, the
We
doors.
started on film.
Yeah.
And then a couple of months into the shoot, Oliver came into the room, and David Brenner, the late great David Brenner, and I were sitting there, and Oliver said, "You guys, George Lucas, I just met with George Lucas." And we're like, "George Lucas?" And he said, "Yeah." And he has this new system, this new electronic editing system called Edit Droid. And he's wondering if we would be interested to edit on that way. And you'd be editing on a computer. And David said, "No, we're not doing it." And I said, "I'm interested." So for whatever reason, we went with the electronic one, but it was and I loved it. You know, it was Laserdisc based, and so it had its own technical limitations. But it was interesting because we finally could see dissolves for the first time right away, instead of sending it to a lab and then having them come back days later. And then we had to reconform all our dailies to uh, original. Do you remember that, Pietro? We had to reconform all the cut footage on to so that they could transfer it to Laserdisc. So when we got the Laserdisc transfers, they had splice marks in it and stuff.
Gosh,
But it was a nightmare. But at the end, when we got the edit decision list, which told us how to cut the negative, it was completely corrupt. And we had to they had to the poor assistants had to eye match everything. And if we cheated sound, they had to phase it in order to find out where we cheated it from.
that's pretty much what we had to do in JFK.
And same on JFK.
And I mean, I
No,
hear,
we
I've
had
talked,
Nightmare.
no, but I've heard from sound editors from time immemorial who've said that was their Mount Everest. But,
that was
bodies. There were bodies on the mountain.
Yeah, because they're in a
exactly.
they're in a different profession now. They go, "I was all set to work in film until I worked on your movie, and I thought maybe I should think of something else because it was so hard."
But the thing is, going back to the system that we thought theoretically was going to work, would have worked if it wasn't for Oliver, because we said we can edit everything on 3/4 inch. We have some kind of reference with the original material. We can build it, we can conform it, but we can't only on the first pass. We can't make edits with 3/4 inch on top of 3/4 inch. Once you do that, once you go into the second cut, you can't keep track of it because you start layering. You don't know where the sound comes from. There's no reference to sound. So that's why sound had to phase it. You know, they had to eye match the picture. So it was excruciating.
Yeah, but do you remember, Pietro, that every time we would recut, we would dub down. So eventually it looked like snow. And then they were going to match the sound.
And the sound went out first. The sound would start to get brittle and break up. And so we had a whole crew that would come in every night and redo what we'd done. When we were asleep, the few hours we got to sleep, there's somebody else was there remaking our cuts to the best of their ability. I mean, those machines were not accurate. There were mistakes made all the time. Sometimes we took credit for those mistakes. And so, or at least I did. I don't know about you guys, but some of my best edits were mistakes. But they really had to come in and redo everything. And then in the morning, we'd go, it looks great again, because it would be fresh video and fresh sound.
Joe, you just said some of your best edits were mistakes. Do you remember any of those in particular from when you were
but I remember there were a couple where the machine just malfunctioned. I went, "Oh, that's interesting. I'll own that." And then I'd show it to, Oliver, and if he liked it, it stayed. But I can't remember specifically what they were.
No, not a problem at all. Michael from our audience was wondering how scenes were assigned for this film. Did Oliver assign scenes? Did you all decide which scenes you were going to take? Did you all work on various scenes together? How did that work? I would love to hear about that. It's a great question.
I think I think we just took, as a new scene came on, we go to Pietro, I'll do this, or Pietro does it, or Hank does it. We weren't proprietary. Occasionally we worked on each other's scenes, but usually there wasn't time. So sometimes we did, and then sometimes we made suggestions for other scenes. So it was quite democratic, really.
Yeah, I mean, I remember specific scenes like we build it. We like you said, they would come in, we would take them, and work on it. But I just remember, for example, scene that you Hank cut that I liked the one where basically the reconstruction of Oswald, with the photo,
Oh, the frisket, the
Time
razor blade
magazine,
with
yeah.
yeah,
That one, always kind of
incredible.
like you stayed very much like that, but then it was incorporated into the larger scene, with the other scenes around it that in the restaurants, with Garrison and his people. But the other division was like in the trial section. I think that was because it was such a long sequence. The last act that was divided into three parts.
I cut the
And
first third. I
huh?
don't, I cut the first third.
Yeah, I remember you did the
The hot
magic
dog.
split, which
I did the
that,
magic,
that
yeah,
one.
yeah.
I concentrated more on the Zapruder film just because of I knew pretty much the frames, just the reenactment of part of that Zapruder or
Incredible.
the dissection of the Zapruder film. Joe, you did some other parts in
I did
in
the ending with the delivery of
yeah. So
Costner's.
that was kind of stayed together like that.
But they flow seamlessly to me when I was watching it yesterday. I went, wait,
Yeah, it's hard to
wait,
remember what.
where did we divide it? And I couldn't see. It just
I just
flowed.
remember I had the fortune to cut John Candy scene with
With the crab meat.
the crab meat. Yeah, it's gonna as dead as that crab meat, or the government is gonna jump over your head and say cock-a-doodle doo. Or I mean, great lines. Man.
Uh-huh. And then smoking while he's eating. That was amazing.
Or even I mean, there's some great lines in JFK. I mean, great script. I mean, and screenplay. But just like seeing Walter Matthau say, it's like picking gnats out of pepper. Remember that?
Or fly
If you
fly specks out of pepper.
no gnats, yeah, gnats out of
Yeah.
pepper. Anyway,
That dog don't hunt.
the dog don't hunt.
Mm-hmm.
Hank, you had said something interesting a little bit earlier. You said that it feels like that when you just rewatched it, it feels like two films for you, the Kevin Costner story and then the information dump. It's interesting you say that because when I was watching the film again the other day, there's that scene when Liz, Garrison's wife, leaves him and breaks up with him, and it's really dramatically potent. It struck me because I was thinking to myself, in lesser hands, in not Oliver and your three's hands, those scenes with Garrison and his wife would have just slowed the film down. But those scenes with her just start adding pressure and more pressure and more pressure and more pressure and tension to an already very tense and pressure-filled film. It's amazing how dramatically they work so well and don't feel at odds, at least to me, with the rest of the film. Was that ever something that you were thinking about, how to make those scenes work as as compellingly as the information dumps, as you put them?
Well, I must say, at the very beginning, I learned about because I didn't come from a dramatic background. I came from a visual background, So what I think Sissy Spacek generally as a foil created these performances and they humanized him. And I don't think this film would have worked without her, honestly. And she's so under the radar. I don't think people appreciate how powerful of a force, even as an editorial force, that she was.
And the other very prominent female presence in the film, Laurie Metcalf as Susie. I mean, oh my gosh, that sequence when she talks about Oswald's background and his time in Russia, and that sequence is like a little mini movie in and of itself, led by that incredible voiceover from her. Who was responsible, if not all three of you, for that sequence?
Which sequence?
The one where
So when
Susie,
she talks about the multiple Oswalds, the Oswald in Mexico,
Oh,
or
right.
Oswald was in Russia, he
That
defected
was
to
Joe.
Russia.
I think
I,
Joe.
I, I don't remember.
I mean, I think it's one of the scenes we all worked on because we're very familiar with.
It may have been a group
He
effort.
goes like the car salesman. Oh, you're shooting at my target. I didn't pay 2 bit for, you can shoot on my target. Remember that part? Anyway,
Maybe
she's
Julie
great.
cut it.
Maybe Julie cut it. Probably she did. I don't know, but no, her accent, Southern accent is great, and her delivery is awesome. No, just seeing all the actors that we had the great fortune to work with. I mean, Jack
Yeah.
Lemmon, Donald
Oh,
Sutherland,
yeah.
Kevin
Incredible.
Bacon. I mean, Tommy Lee Jones. When Tommy Lee Jones comes in the first scene, it's amazing. It's amazing. Amazing. Yes, that's the whole reason why you have a long table so that one person's. Anyway, this.
I so wish we'd had another 6 months to work on this film. Well, now honestly, I'm glad it ended when it ended.
Yeah.
Boy, what we could have done.
Can you elaborate on that, Hank? I would love to hear why you feel that another 6 months would have helped you. Like, what would that have helped you with?
I would have loved to have just really turned this film on its head and just integrate the story, the Cosner story, more with all the other footage, and just make it so these weren't discrete moments, but everything sort of flowed one from the other. Who knows? It might not have been a success, but it would have been. We were working 16 to 18-hour days, at least 7 days a week.
Yeah, it would have been the 6 months would have given us a few days off, which would have been nice.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, no, that too.
The other thing that I wanted to ask you about, you had just mentioned Donald Sutherland. The scene with X that we have in the film was originally two scenes, correct?
Yes.
I think so, yeah.
Can you talk about the decision to combine them and how you combine those two scenes together? Because it's in the finished film, at least to me as a viewer, it was totally seamless. But I would love to hear about that decision.
Yeah. So what happened is that when we were, I remember it was like October, and we were, basically around the director's cut, right? But we had a 4-hour film. And with all the scenes were structured the way they were, and if you picture the structure of the film, it starts with a prologue, then you have New Orleans, the investigation in New Orleans, finding the connection with Oswald and David Ferry and Clay Shaw and all that, and he thinks he has a case against Clay Shaw. He goes to Washington, D.C., meets Mr. X, and he says, hey, that's one part of the scene. And then he says, go back to Dallas. You have to go back to Dallas to do more investigation. And, you're going to bring a case. He does that, then meets Mr. X a second time. Okay, and then he says, well, now you're ready to go to trial. And then the trial is the end. The thing is, the point is why can't you have the investigation of New Orleans, the connections with Oswald in New Orleans, and the investigation in Dallas happening at the same time? There's no reason for that. So one of the points was that Dealey Plaza, or the event of the location of the assassination, is the focal point. So start incorporating elements of Dealey Plaza, images, and that's where those small cuts helped, just like flashes back, turning to that. By combining X, there's a lot of tricks that we did using long shots, incorporating dialogue that wasn't there. We condensed the dialogue. So what happened is that by restructuring or by deciding to combine X only later at one time rather than breaking it up like that and combining the investigation both in New Orleans and in Dallas, basically it condensed the film, and that's what happened with layering of scenes on top of each other, so that it allowed us to eliminate a lot of time. And the scene, I mean, it's a fabulous scene with Mr. X, and people say, how do you combine, costumes? And they're the same, but it basically using, wide, long shots, or using, other stock footage, recreations, reenactments over the dialogue. It was basically cutting dialogue behind the scenes I remember a friend of mine once he says, "Oh, I love that scene with Mr. X. I love particularly those long wide shots. You know, it really shows Washington, D.C. and the oppressiveness of that." We just thought, we use those shots just to hide them talking, you know. So all those tricks actually benefited us. But it was a structural finding a structural solution to a very long film, and combining the two scenes of Mr. X was key to that.
I figured that those long takes were probably to what you used in order to combine those two scenes together. But I have to say, they they work so beautifully. Those long shots
Yeah,
of
they're
the two of them
beautiful.
sitting there and
And then
spending
the
a lot.
dialogue helped with that, having the dialogue play through it and having it sound all the same. You know, that scene, the airport is right near the reflecting pool. And so the dialogue was almost unusable. Well, a lot of it was unusable. You could tell what Sutherland was saying, but it was destroyed
Yeah.
by jets going overhead constantly. You know, you'd finally have a minute with no, not a minute, seconds without a jet, and then another one would come. So he did that whole, it was weird. This is just an interesting point. When Sutherland came to do
ADR.
yeah, his ADR, he would watch the scene. I remember he was sitting in the room and he watched the scene and he was sick as a dog. He had the flu. And he watched everything, drinking tea, and then he just did everything on a roll. He'd go through the whole scene. And I was watching it last night, remembering that, and I couldn't believe how good the sync was. I mean, he
Yeah.
Oh,
just
didn't
nailed it.
Yeah.
didn't he do it in just a couple takes?
Yeah, he
No.
just there were
No.
like two takes. He went through the whole thing, and
Yeah.
then he left because
Yeah.
he was sick, and
It
it
was
just
quite. Yeah. It
it
was
just
amazing because
incredible.
we said, oh, like in ADR, and he had a lot of dialogue, so we, spaced out a lot of time to redo it. And he said, watch, like Joe said, he watched the scene. He said, and then we said, okay, let's do the first line. He says, no, leave it open.
Let it
I'll just
roll.
go. Let it roll. And what happened, I've never experienced it. He literally clicked in and he just said it. And it was in sync. I mean, we didn't, it was amazing how,
It was
like a
amazing.
mechanism. It truly is. And it's true. It is. It
Have
looks
you ever seen anyone
nothing.
do,
No,
and
no.
all the people that have
You,
done looping, I've never
you
seen
can
anyone
do,
that
if you're
good.
very good, you can do seconds, 10
Yeah,
seconds. He did minutes of
yeah.
talking. Just like, what?
That's a lot of dialogue.
That's a lot of dialogue. Yeah, it's a seven. Anyway, amazing, amazing
What a
feat.
mind, what a brain, and good performance too at the same time. Not just remembering the line, but saying it the right way with the right intonation and inflection and meaning. It was insane.
That
I,
really is. Oh, Hank, go ahead.
I
Sorry.
was just gonna say, I think in everybody's career, they'll they'll hit a moment like that, which is truly life altering, and you'll never see it again. And we were just very fortunate to see him deliver that.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. That's genuinely fascinating that he was able to blow through that much dialogue, as sick as a dog, and click in like that.
Yeah.
That's remarkable. I want to shift gears a little bit and get to a question from Joseph in our audience, and also want to give credit to Brian from our audience, who was asking about how the style of the editing came about, which we already addressed. So thank you, Brian, for that question. Joseph says, in the film, you intercut between two versions of the murder of Officer J.D. Tippit, the Warren Commission version that Oswald did it, and an alternate version that the gunman was short and stocky, which does not describe Oswald. Could you explain your reasons for intercutting these two opposed versions?
Confusion. That it was Oliver wanted it to be confusing and not believable. So that would be it.
That's a wonderful answer.
Yeah, and it illustrated just the utter dichotomy in
Yeah.
what was being said.
also to illustrate the fact that he couldn't have been there and end up at the in the movie theater at the same time. So so that most likely it was the argument that he was set up. He was told to go to the theater and wait there. So he and trying to say, could he have killed Tippett, and then he couldn't have made it to the theater.
The film constantly asks you to question what you're watching and question what you believe, which I think is one of, something that is still obviously very relevant today, 35 years later. And it's amazing how much this film asks from its audience, yet how many rewards it reaps and gives back. There's a moment that I want to dig into. There's a few small moments in this film that I want to dig into. One of my favorites is when Garrison says something to the extent of, "This is the alleged murder of the president," and then you cut to a gunshot, and then a Looney Tunes cartoon with Nasty Canasta, which adds some really dark humor to the whole thing. Was that scripted? Was that something that was found in the edit? Where did that come from?
I don't know. I think that a lot of those inventions are just for fun and were done for a rhythm purpose, for editing purpose, and contrasting certain things. Just playfulness, I think, in the editing. I mean, for example, there is a scene where Oswald in his bedroom, and he's just basically waiting. And I think it's the lady comes. She says, "You want to watch?" TV or something like that. But later on, when we construct that event, there are two shots where he lies on the bed and then he sits in the bed. There's no reason to have two cuts, but rhythmically it works. Or, for example, in the opening, sequence, in the opening prologue, when we talk about Dulles, and JFK, that they didn't like each other. There is a shot there's in front of the doorsteps, and you see just a quick cut where they're talking, and then Dulles tries to reach to shake JFK's hand, but he doesn't. It's minute, but it's two cuts. You could just have one, but it's fun to show that relationship. So I think a lot of times I personally was enjoying just doing things for enjoyment of rhythm, if it wouldn't detract to it. And on top of that, we could see that visually, even with the rapid fire of visuals, that you could follow it, because you always had like the narration, or dialogue that would carry it, or sometimes just an accent with sound effects or music, or slow it down, whatever. I think it was a lot of playfulness in rhythm that also evolved into.
It's editing is character development. I mean, we did have fun. We did have fun, but we sort of were learning as we went how to get in deeper and how to be able to tell a deeper story with these little cuts.
Yes. I think it also allowed the viewer, to jump and detach itself, but also to kind of like a puzzle, to figure out their own combinations of how do things make sense. It gives the viewer a freedom. Some things are hypotheticals, other are maybe hearsay, other things are truthful. I mean, I don't know. It's multiple point of views, that allows the viewer to jump and also find its own conclusion somehow, with all the vast amount of information and conspiracy theories, whatever, are out there. It's like, I think it reflects that.
But quite honestly, we didn't have a lot of we only had one preview, so it might have worked for us, three exhausted guys, but we didn't know how other people would feel, and so we did have one preview where and it wasn't done through like NRG or something like that. It was just we handed out some yellow legal pads and pencils and asked people what they thought, and that was our one preview to get input. Does the film even work? We were so enmeshed in it. We weren't sure, and so and the response was good, but we had no idea what it would go on to do.
Hank, you just said something that I want to ask you about. You said that you can tell a deeper story with little cuts. Do you remember, any of you remember any examples of where you use these little cuts to tell a deeper story? Hank, that was such an interesting thing that you said.
Well, I mean, just little tiny things you could, as I recall, I think in the magic bullet section there, they show a pristine bullet, or or no, it was actually the actual bullet, which is all fucked up, and then a pristine bullet. No, well, I think I'm sorry. A bullet that went through, that would have gone through bone and flesh, would be all fucked up, and the bullet that they found was pristine. So you just show each one of these, and it tells a deeper story. And it works. I mean, as a piece of editing, conventionally it would be an abysmal piece of editing, but it's a really great storytelling device. And we were inventing our own devices as we went, which was real. I mean, what an opportunity.
Do you remember? Oh, go
ahead.
No. I was just.
Okay. No, it was true because Oliver wanted us to do that. He encouraged us to be brave and just try new stuff.
But can you imagine if we had more previews and everyone started just piping in what was wrong?
Oh yeah, too many notes.
Oh my gosh.
Well, given the fact that you were given so much freedom editorially working on this film, Elliot from our audience was wondering, was there a particular scene or sequence that unlocked your imaginations working on this? I'd love to hear from all of you about this. That's a great question.
Well, I thought when I saw Hank's opening, that to me was an inspiration, and his way, because of working, on commercials, brought something new that hadn't occurred to me that we could try in the film, and then doing these quick cuts with our own film, and then the recreation of the Kennedy, of the actual footage, and intercutting those two so that it was almost blurred, was so fun. When Oswald getting assassinated by Jack Ruby was a combination of the real and the recreated one, and it was just, and they're because of the way Bob shot it, Bob Richardson, the DP, it was very easy to, or it wasn't easy to distinguish between the two, and you didn't want the audience to, and it was fun to do that, and with those old cameras that had the three lenses, where when a new lens went in, it would shutter, and using stuff like that was just, it was new to all of us, because we never worked with footage where it had things like that, and so working with all that was just, it was all new. The Super 8 and all the stock footage and the newsreel footage. It was just, pretty much anything goes, and as well as the sound.
Yeah, sound was very important. Let's talk about the opening sequence. I mean, I know, Hank, you worked on it for a long time, and it was like so much to tell, and it was a very long prologue for me. I at a certain point, I did a pass on it, and for me, what was inspirational there is that to shape it in such a way that you have a documentary feel at the beginning part, then start incorporating recreated footage with documentary as they come, in Dallas, and then the last part just music. And I remember the researcher had done that. JFK liked marching bands and the snare drums, and incorporating the snare drums because it reflected the triangulation of fire. It sounded like fire. But talking about how Hank starting with the opening sequence, working on it, restructuring, putting the music, it came together because we were already at the time incorporating John Williams' music, that he had given us different themes. the conspirators' themes, and other themes that we're weaving through in the prologue. The opening prologue, the opening movement reflects both music and style and the themes with for the rest of the film. So putting the drums with the sound, and then the sound designers seeing the Harleys and accentuating the sound of the Harleys going through, also in a musical way with the drums as it builds up. It was, all elements coming at the same time from all different directions, from composer, from sound designers, from editors, from visual effects. I mean, I will show you something and share, like, for example, something like this, where these were frames that were printed of film that we would like recompose, just like a whole frame, like 16. No, we want that shot. Or anyway, I just have plenty of those. Like, for example, this, like, sorry, I just want to share some
Where did you
things.
get these, Pietro? These are great.
Yeah, I didn't get any of those.
I kept them for 35 years. I have the whole thing, every single optical. Look at this. I got.
Oh, show us more, Pietro. This is amazing.
Do you have the 3/4 machines?
No, what I brought is this.
Oh yeah, I have mine too.
Me too.
This is how we cut JFK on one of these.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well, eventually.
I'm just saying,
Eventually.
there were a lot of forces, a lot of people. Ah, there it is. Good, Hank. You still have yours. A lot of people, a lot of forces, very little amount of time. It was literally, imagine a crystallizations of all these forces coming together, creative forces, and I don't know if more time would have allowed us to screw it up more, but I think, yeah, we were dead. It was painfully hard, and we endangered our lives. I mean, I remember I crashed on the freeway one morning after 48 hours of not sleeping. So it's like,
Hank, didn't something happen to you when we were all towards the end, when we were all so exhausted? Did you?
I think I had an accident as well.
I remember I started sleepwalking, and I hit my foot into the wall or something, and my foot swelled up, and so I had to we were working at Lantana mixing, and I came to Lantana. My foot it was so swollen it wouldn't fit in my shoe, and I remember walking in my socks through the lobby, and I saw Dee Dee Allen, whom at that time I didn't know, and she looked at me with such disdain, like, "Oh, Oliver Stone's editor is just so comfy in their socks." I later got to know her and told her that story. She didn't remember it, but one thing I did want to talk about was the music on that, and how lucky we were, the way John Williams worked. So I don't know about you guys, but I never was delivered, of all the movies I worked on, it was the only one where we got the music early and on time. And he gave us these, was it 7 themes? I think it was 7
half a dozen themes that he had done.
And so they were and he said, here's what they are. Here are these 7 themes, and you can mix and match. And some of the themes were longer and had segments, and you could take segments out, but it was really up to us. He said, use them wherever you want. And so we did. It was such a luxury. Now, these are early ones that he did on a synthesizer, but they sounded pretty good. And we knew what the music was.
Played them for us for the first time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Incredible.
He came to New Orleans and gave us, he says, I'll give it to you ahead of time because I still finishing Hook for Spielberg. But really what was amazing is that we, like you said, we take it apart, but then if we needed something, we would call Ken Weinberg, amazing music editor, John Williams music editor, who for me taught me a lot. And he would say, no, I just need string parts, or extend this part and send it back to us. But we were all cutting music as we go along. So, for example, like we talked earlier with the opening sequence, when we had his music, but obviously later on he went back, fine-tuned and composed, around both the sound effects and the drums. But he was very, very generous with having given us those theme and giving us the freedom to play around with it.
I'm so glad that you addressed this because Sean in our audience had a question about this. Another part of his question that goes along with this is how did or were there any surprising moments of musical synergy you discovered when trying these pre-recorded musical themes out in different scenes?
Just that they worked so well. I mean, that it's like they had always been there. Of course, it's been a long time, but
Yeah.
they just worked.
John
Yeah.
really had a visceral feeling for the emotional valence of what we were doing in the scenes. So you would lay dialogue or just sound design in with it, and it would be seamless and very
Yeah.
quick. We got the credit. He did the work. We did a little work.
Little word.
He
It
got a
was
little credit too.
I had no idea that was something that I had learned when doing research for this that he had written so much of the score that he had written all of this ahead of time.
Yeah.
It's amazing seeing the finished
Yeah.
product and just how, as you guys just
It
said, how
it
seamlessly it integrates.
it was part of it. It was organic because as we were building just like to go back to the opening movement, start incorporating those themes, the conspirators themes, the little bit more familiar, themes that reflect both JFK, but also, Garrison's and his family, the more emotional parts. But you can see that, and then later on you recognize the conspirators themes with David Ferry and others as, the kind of wood percussive
You know,
element.
Yeah, and the Cubans
The
with
Cubans, yeah. Anyway, so a lot of stuff.
I pissed him off. I did
Ooh,
John Williams. When it was the Kevin Bacon ferry scene where they were
oh yeah, the
the
party
ferry
scene.
party scene, and I used this, and Ferry ends up dead, and I used this Mozart's Kyrie,
Oh,
and unbeknownst to me, that John's a pretty devout guy.
yeah. He says, "Don't."
Guy.
Don't. It's
And he
it's
just got really
blasphemous.
upset.
How
Yeah.
dare you use it?
So I took it out.
Yeah.
That's hysterical. Um, I want to ask you all about the climax of the film in the courtroom, which you said you all worked on. Specifically, I mean, you have we finally see the Zapruder film. You have Garrison going back into the left, and we see that headshot over and over and over and over, and it really pounds home how devastatingly violent
Yeah.
and horrific this assassination was. And then you have this incredibly long, but totally compelling closing argument from him. Can you talk specifically about cutting that closing argument, that extended 15, 20-minute sequence, the evolution that went through, and how you aim to keep the audience's interest and how you did it so successfully for that length of time?
it was there was a lot of footage. They did many takes of that, and so it was finding the best takes and then cutting and then using the cutaways, the jury, his family, and his staff. And so it was really just a matter of getting the best moments on camera with the judge and I was amazed at watching it yesterday and at seeing Costner's build up to the end when he's actually quite emotional, um, and watching the judge also, who had been very skeptical earlier on, and then as he's seeing the evidence and hearing Costner's speech, becomes more accepting and curious, instead of so dismissive, which he's been the whole time. So it was really just finding the best moments through all the, and then it was I had a stack of notes that was just huge, working on that, and it
I
eventually just went together.
Yeah, I want to bring it back to how we first heard about Oliver wanting to do JFK. We were working on the doors, and he brought us into the screening room. Do you remember? And he showed us a 35 millimeter print of the Zapruder film, and he said, "That's going to be my next film." And I remember seeing it on a big screen, the back and to the left. And he said, I remember Oliver said, this film, what I want people to remember is back and to the left, back and to the left. So so the whole film from the beginning, from the opening, with starting to incorporate the investigations with putting back Daley Plaza throughout the films, peppered throughout these little moments, really serve to place the audience and be familiar geographically with the location of the assassination, with that moment. The Zapruder film is truly a historical element. Regardless of how you analyze it or what your theory is, you see a man being shot, okay, from whichever, from the grass, So that was his mission to drive that moment home. And you can see when it's broken down over and over again, frame, and like these frames here, like we blow it up, I show you like the frames that we chose with the shooters, on the grass, uh, anyway, it leaves an impression, and I think it's powerful when you see in the jurors' reaction, Clay Shaw or the judge, just like, I can't believe he's showing it this. That's what I think Oliver wanted people to remember, back and to the left.
Where was that? At Big Time?
Yeah, exactly. Big time screening room.
I mean, another moment that pounds home how horrific the assassination was earlier on in the film. Garrison and his team go to the book depository. Garrison is holding the rifle, looking through it, and then you cut to a shot of Jackie screaming.
Yes.
I mean, what can you? Who was responsible for that one cut? It's one of the most impactful cuts in the entire film, if you remember. And
I
how
would
did that
say
come to
Hank.
be?
My guess would be Hank. I know I
No,
didn't do
Was
it.
that you, Hank?
no, I don't know. I just remember that
It
scene.
was
Remember,
Hank.
was it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a
I thought it
that's
was you, Joe, who did that because you were cutting
yeah,
that
you're right.
scene.
I did it.
Take credit.
I
I
remember now.
Yeah, that moment, I love the fact that this film does not get lost in its conspiracy theories, and its in just the whole tangle of plot that it's telling, that it hammers home the real horror of that event. And wait, Hank, are you saying something? If you are, you're on mute.
The dog was howling, so I muted.
Oh, no worries.
But at the end of the day, this is a very human story, and what I didn't understand the narrative format nearly as well as Joe and Pietro did. I was just learning, but it's if you just have stock footage and you don't have human moments, it gets really cold really quickly, And I honestly, I picked up on just some of the scenes that the scenes where Cosner's group were all together, and they were interacting, and just the emotion, and Laurie Metcalf and Michael Rooker. It showed me that ultimately this film was it was a human story. There was a human tragedy, and we had to keep that in mind throughout. And I honestly, I wasn't thinking about it now. 35 years later, I can think about it and realize we achieved that. And we did make a really human movie.
Absolutely. And I think, Hank, what you're highlighting right there is the big strength of why this film has lingered for so long. Yes, on a technical level, it's brilliant. But because you do tell a human story, you see the impact that this assassination had on so many lives, including
Yeah.
including the man who was assassinated. I mean, how tragic and how vicious and how violent it was. I think that is a big reason why this film has stayed with us for so long. I think that's a perfect way to close this off. I can't believe our hour is already up.
Yeah. Wow.
Joe, Pietro, and Hank, thank you for being here tonight. I wish we had another
you.
multiple hours
Thank
to
you.
talk because there's so much to dig into, but this has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Joshua.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you to
Thanks.
everybody in the audience right now.
Yeah,
and
thanks.
Also for our
Thank
two
you,
encores.
everybody, for coming.
Thank you
If
for
you're
coming.
really out there.
They are definitely out there, and they will be here tomorrow too for our two encores. Stay tuned for what we have upcoming. We are about to go into Emmy season, so our usual raft of TV Q&As will start in the next couple of weeks. Be on the lookout for the announcements on theqandagency.com. We are at the Q&A Agency on social media. Good night, everybody. And Pietro, Hank, and Joe, thank you again. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.